Here inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, we are 5 practices into Ohio State training camp. The national champs back on the field on Tuesday after a day off on Monday. They went Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We watched Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Didn't get to watch Sunday, and then they certainly didn't let us watch today when they were doing situational stuff. That's Mick Walker. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. We are back after a long hiatus. It is time to officially ramp up this YouTube channel for the 2025 college football season in the build-up to Ohio State versus Texas. We thought no better time than the present because the quarterbacks just spoke. Julian Sayin, Lincoln Kienholz, Tavian St. Clair, Billy Fessler, Ryan Day, and Ross Bjork all present on the field here to speak to the media here in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Mick, beyond Edric Houston about to be working his way back onto the field, what did you learn about Ohio State? Was it quarterbacks? Do you want to just start there, or do you just want to run with that?
Yeah, we can start at quarterbacks, but like you said, Edric Houston was walking around today. I think he made it a point to kind of walk around a little bit more, whether some people can see him walking around. I think he was getting a pliable or whatever he was eating today as well. So he was spending some time kind of doodling around the Woody Hayes Athletic Center after practice. So that was a welcome sight. The other welcome sight was to hear from both Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz kind of on both their takes about the competition that I don't think anybody at Ohio State views as a competition or wants to think of as a competition. At least that's what I gleaned from the conversations today.
Yeah, it's not really a competition right now. They're really in evaluation mode. They're going to start to get into competition mode, and obviously they're being evaluated every day in the context of they need a starting quarterback. But right now it's more of like evaluating, understanding where these guys are in their development. You know, where does this competition start? Who's going to be in the lead when it does start? That's where I kind of fall on this. It's not Julian versus Lincoln right now, but at the same time, like, they're building the foundation for what will be a competition, I think, that starts probably either today or in the next couple of days. And, you know, Ryan Day's really encouraged by everything that he's seen from these guys. Their leadership has taken a step forward. I was a fan of the cadence that I heard from both those guys. Ryan Day's huge on that. You can tell some leadership qualities based on the cadence. Both of them had good command of the huddle.
Tavian St. Clair was hoarse because I assume he had not been used to doing. He was much more of a clapper in high school and did not have to do a cadence. So
yeah.
He was.
So, you know, it's just interesting the way that they're discussing this. To be honest, we're not getting a lot of information from Billy Fessler and from Ryan Day or from either quarterback. Of course, Tim May had to ask Billy Fessler who his backup quarterback is, which is always the great joke of the Ohio State beat when there's a quarterback competition asking who the backup is. It's just about putting the work in, getting the development every day, and understanding that eventually somebody will be named. And I don't think at any point Ohio State will approach this as a 1v1 true competition. It's just over time, somebody will emerge and there will be a starting quarterback named. It's almost like the white smoke coming out of the Vatican. So we'll see where it goes. But really, that's about all there is to say about the quarterbacks, to be honest, because they said a lot without saying a lot about the battle.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, like you said, they didn't really want to make it about, like, I think multiple people, and at least, was it Ryan Day or Billy Fessler? One of the coaches specifically said, like, these two guys are friends, they're good friends in the quarterback room. Tavian St. Clair said, if you want to see how to handle a good competition, a healthy competition, you look at our room right now. Like, they're very much trying to make sure this is a physical on the field, like, we'll find our quarterback based on the on-field results instead of, like, pitting Julian Sayin against Lincoln Kienholz, because that doesn't really benefit either party or anybody. But again, that's, like you mentioned, that's the competition at quarterback. There's other competitions going on. There's different battles along the offensive line. I think Ryan Day did say something pretty enlightening and interesting about the offensive line, or multiple things. I don't know if that's where you wanted to go, but that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, I want to finish up real quick just on the quarterback thing. I thought it was interesting that, of course, Julian and Lincoln the coaches are asked to describe those guys. Lincoln, it's the athleticism, it's the ability to be on the move, and the release is something that's new. He's focused on getting a quicker release, whether that's through his mental side of things or that's through mechanics. But he has a quicker release than he did in the spring, which I think is notable because he compared that with the athleticism and give him, a leg up in the battle. But then when Ryan Day's asked about Julian Sayin, he mentions accuracy, on-time throws, processing, that kind of stuff that separates, those great quarterbacks. And I think those traits, I don't think there's anything said on accident. It's interesting to me that those were the traits that Ryan Day talked about Julian. Now, the caveat, he was asked specifically about Julian, so he named those. So we'll see where it goes. As for the offensive line, yeah, really interesting stuff. Austin Saraville taking some reps at left tackle as well as right tackle. There's some secondary position conversation there. Ethan Onyanwa taking reps at both left tackle and right tackle and even at guard. I think there's, not in a bad way, but I think there is a little bit of paranoia from last year where they had to shuffle some guys on the fly and weren't necessarily cross-training them as much as they needed to. And so, hey, we got to train Austin Servalt at left tackle, even if he's probably going to play right tackle. Ethan Onyanwa needs to know how to play right tackle in case something happens to Servalt, and our best backup option is left tackle. Onyanwa also needs to know guard just in case SH hits the fan and you got to do something crazy. So, I think Ryan Day was intentional in how he talked about that, and he said it's like 80-20 instead of 60-40. So 80% of the time, Ethan Onyanwa's at left tackle and Servalt's at right tackle. But that 20% is still interesting, that they're cross-training all these guys and getting the reps. And then further from that, talking about how they look at 8, 9, and 10 on the depth chart on the offensive line and think, hey, this guy's going to play for us. That is a far cry from 2023 when I heard Ryan Day say in the team room over there, we got to figure out who 5 is before we can get to 6 and 7. And, that was a bad room. This is a very good, very deep, very talented room.
Yeah, and even beyond Austin Servalt and Ethan Onyanwa, you look at, because of their split field setup that we got to see where you mix up the guards and the tackles, like Ian Moore and Phillip Daniels, who are perceived kind of the backup left tackle, backup right tackle, and like respectively, got reps with Luke Montgomery. Or did I flip him? I flipped one of them.
No, you didn't. I'm just saying they can cross-train too.
They cross-trained as well, but then they also got reps with Luke Montgomery and Taylor Shabola and Carson, just because they were splitting those up, so you get to mix in and you kind of get to feel. So like you said, now we can roll 8, 9 deep because you assume that they trust those two guys at tackle. You assume that, I think it's fair to say they trust Josh Padilla at center if something were to happen at Carson Hensman, and then whether that's Jake Cook, who's already in the 2 deep as a true freshman, or Gabe Van Sickle, who's been slowly coming on at guard as well. Like, we're naming off a whole other 5 guys beyond the starters that could play, or conceivably I think Ohio State has some certain level of trust in. So that was awesome to hear about from the offensive line. And then I think we started off the top, but any other injury updates or just updates on Edgar Houston, I think Ryan Day shed some light on that.
Yeah, it was nice to hear. He's going to be back on the field at some point in the next week or so, I would say next couple weeks. But in the meantime, you've got Tywan Malone, you've got Jason Moore, you've got a guy like Will Smith Jr. and right on down the line, I can name all those guys. They're all moved up. Eric Mensah. They're all moved up a step right now. Zion Grady and all of those guys at defensive end are not necessarily getting that because KJ and Caden and Bo and Logan George, they're all healthy. CJ Hicks. Whereas the defensive tackle, not only are they trying to develop their starters to be ready for this, one of their starters is out. It elevates everybody on the depth chart from defensive tackle. And sometimes guys have to slide from nose to 3 tech to fill out that depth chart. And Ryan Day did mention today they stopped doing the split fields once we left because now they can start to show the depth chart without caring if anybody sees it. So they're rolling 1s, 2s, and 3s on one field now instead of doing the split fields. So they're getting a feel for who's making the most of the second team reps against the second team offensive line, which they feel good about if they need to play. So those reps all of a sudden for defensive tackles against the second team offensive line, they're a little bit more standout than maybe reps against the second team offensive line a couple years ago. So I think they're getting a good feel for where the step chart is right now. I think they're getting a good base for what they want to do the rest of camp, and they'll go from there. This quarterback competition seems to be wide open in the public. I don't know what they're saying behind closed doors, but as of right now, you got a quarterback competition starting to become full swing. You've got an offensive line rotation that they feel really, really good about, and you've got a promising update on Edric Houston. And I think those 3 are really what we learned. There's a lot to talk about with what we learned from Ross Bjork. In-game experience, stadium renovations, stadium experience, Brutus's entrance, the band is moving.
Introducing new traditions.
The student section is moving. We're not going to talk about that here. You're going to go to lettermenrow.com and learn about that. That's where mixed content resides on the recruiting side with Berm and Alex Gleitman. That's where my team stuff resides with Austin Ward. We have the Lettermen Lounge message board, $1 for your first a lot of days because it's $1 until the Texas game. Mixed coverage, Austin's coverage, Berm's coverage, my coverage, Alex Gleitman's coverage.
Pete Nakos, Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, now Josh Pate. Anybody that you would like in the college football space, they essentially now work under the Yahoo Rivals On 3 umbrella. So come on down, like Spencer said, $1 through August 30th. Get for the Texas game, and we'll have everything positive or negative depending on how that result goes.
Yeah. There's a lot going on right now at lettermenrow.com. Come check out the fun for just $1. That's Mick. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. We're going to get out of here, go provide some coverage over at lettermenrow.com. We'll see you guys there.